Hi, and welcome to the Health, Weight Loss and Wellness Show. And today, our very special guest is Pat Duckworth. Let me tell you about Pat. She is a woman's wellbeing specialist, author, and international speaker. And Pat specializes in menopause and advises employers who are committed to supporting people in the workplace at this transitional stage of life, which is almost unheard of, which, bless the companies that are doing that. Pat has published 5 books, including an award-winning Hot Women Cool Solutions. Sounds familiar, ladies? How to Control Menopause Symptoms Using Mind-Body Techniques. And her latest book, Menopause, Mind the Gap, The Value of Supporting Women's Health in the Workplace, was published in January in 2021. Well done, and has been highly acclaimed. So welcome to the show. I am so happy that you are here.
It's great to be here, Jodie. Oh, we've got so much to talk about.
I know, I'm so excited, and we're having a little bit of a chat start, and me whinging about my menopause symptoms more likely. But you've got a special story, and how about you share that with us at the moment, how you got to where you are now?
Oh, well, the first time I heard about menopause, I think I must have been about 12, and my brother was 4 years older than me. And he said to me, I am so going to be out of here before mum hits menopause. And I thought, I don't know what this thing is, but it must be bad.
He's right.
He's right.
Well, that's the intuition for a 14-year-old, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, my mother was a bit of a drama queen, God rest her, but he knew that this was not going to be a good time of life. And I think a lot of women walk in the opposite direction when they hear the word menopause. I walked towards it and thought, I need to know more about this because I don't know what it is. And if I've got to deal with this, it's important. So I think that was my first introduction. And then I was working in public service, in the civil service here in the UK for over 30 years. And I'd worked my way up the greasy pole to a really good position. I was a director in a big government department working in central London. I was in my 50s. I'm walking to work one morning. Sun is shining, Big Ben is ringing in the background, the sun's glinting off the Victoria Memorial outside Buckingham Palace, and I'm crying.
Oh, wow.
I thought, what is this about? And I realized just how unhappy I was in this job that I'd wanted and worked for over 30 years.
Wow.
Which was, yeah, that's really the universe kind of slapping you in the face and saying, wake up. Because I was commuting for 3 hours, 4 hours a day,
Yep.
doing a really serious job, had lots of responsibility, and I had a manager who really didn't care what I did. And in fact, I said to him, could I have some feedback? And he said, well, you're obviously good with people, but so what? Which as a manager, I thought was a little bit bizarre, really.
Wow.
Anyway, I came home and said to my husband, I'm not going to do this much longer. And long story short, within a year, I had left that job, taken my pension, and I had retrained as a hypnotherapist. And I thought, what is it that I want to specialize in? Because as we know, niching is a good thing to do. And I thought, well, all those books have been written by men on, all the neuro-linguistic programming guys who write about confidence and weight loss and giving up smoking and all the rest of it. And I thought, menopause. If the guys write a book about that, who's going to take any notice? So that's how I ended up writing Hot Women Cool Solutions, and how I've been working in this area now for 11 years.
Yeah, wow. What a transition. And I think there'd be a lot of people out there that can relate. And where we start off in this career, and like I was always searching myself. And so I would go and I would start in a particular area, and I'd get promoted, and it always seemed to be not enough. And then I got to the point where I'm like, I can't go and do something else. I've got to really figure out what I wanted. And then I came across hypnotherapy as well. So you came to the dark side, or I went to the dark side. And I've always been fascinated with the brain, human behavior, why we do what we do, body language, all of that. And I actually started out as a generalist, but noticed patterns as I was doing that. Someone would come in for anxiety, another person would be, alcoholism or weight loss, or, some really heavy topics as well. And I noticed that they were all saying similar things, but they were coming in for different things. And I thought, maybe, I'm going a bit mad here, because I was noticing that pattern. And what I discovered was there was an underlying cause, like a wound, our childhood wounds, underlying cause for why it triggered our behavior, but people had different behavior as a response. And, I went down that rabbit hole for the weight loss, because I just found that was the most enjoyable for me. Yeah. So amazing. I think a lot of people will relate, like I do myself, of wanting to change careers. And I think we get to this point in our life when we want the second half to be better. And we work so hard. We work. And then you're like, before. Do you think it's menopause that does that? Or I don't know.
I absolutely do. I think there's like a reset button. In fact, I went to a homeopath last year when we could still do that kind of thing. And he said to me, "Do you still specialize in menopause?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "I so envy women their menopause, because you get to reset and reboot." I thought that was amazing for a man to say that. And it's true, because in hypnotherapy and therapy terms, a whole load of identities fall away at menopause. Suddenly you're not so much the carer, you're not the reproductive goddess that you were. Your role in life starts to change, and it's just that chance to go, who do I really want to be? And I think there are probably structural changes in the brain as well. We know there are big structural changes at puberty because of the hormonal changes. So why wouldn't it happen at this stage of life as well? And in fact, that book you see in my background, Hot Women Rock, is all about women becoming entrepreneurs at midlife, because so many women find a new passion, either for the job that they've got, or for a cause, a charity, something in their community. Women make really big changes because, you're not just dealing with menopause. I was talking to a client the other day and she said, "Well, I can probably kind of tough this out." I said, "Yeah, you probably can."
Yeah.
I said, "But the decisions you make now are for the next 50 years of your life."
Yeah.
I'm living to 100, so, don't just think of it as, "Oh, I can tough this out and get through it." What really good decisions could you make now that sets up the rest of your life? And she said, "Oh, perhaps I've got to think about this a bit more."
Yeah, because we're living longer and we want to live longer. And I think what we want is quality of life. And so retirement age just keeps getting pushed back. So if we're going to be working for so if we hit 50, you're going to be working for another 25 years, maybe even 30 years by the time we get around to that. That's a long time. That's a long time when you're suffering menopause.
Yeah. And there's a really important statistic. It might not be the same statistic in Australia, but I bet it's not dissimilar. That the gender pay gap here in the UK, despite all the legislation and everything, is still about 16%. The gender pension gap is 40%.
Yeah.
Women have 40% less in their pension pots than men do.
Yeah.
And some of that is the decisions that you make at menopause. Because if you're working and you're not feeling very well, you're not supported in the workplace, you feel embarrassed talking about it, 25% of women consider leaving their jobs. I don't know what the percentage is, but a lot of women start working part-time because they think, "I'm just not well enough to work full-time." They don't go after the promotions that they wanted. They don't take on the roles that they could have taken based on their experience and their knowledge. We
Mm.
hold ourselves back at this stage of life because we don't feel well and
Yep.
we can't talk about it.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so committed to the workplace menopause, which fortunately is gaining traction now. But I'd really like anybody watching to realize, if you've been thinking any of those things, you're not alone. It's a pattern amongst women to really not be earning the money you could be earning just because you're not feeling well.
Yeah, I can 100% relate to that too. And I went through a big and emotional trauma, which I didn't have a chance to grieve from or process, and was in this highly stressed situation. And then finally got out of that, but there was stress was still around. And then I had chronic fatigue, which was, part of the perimenopause symptoms, and the stress didn't help those symptoms at all. And so I had chronic fatigue and couldn't work. I couldn't work properly for, over a year, and then I could only work part-time, and I would do some work and then I would go and lay down for a while, and then I'd come back and do some work. Oh my God, I forgot what that was like. Even if I ate something, just my body digesting it, I would feel like I'd need to fall asleep. And you would have people saying, "Oh, just go for a walk, you'll feel better." And I just wanted to punch them in the face.
Well, and so you've got to a really important point here, is that we know that menopause is about the reproductive hormones reducing, estrogen and progesterone, they're reducing. Estrogen affects 300 processes in the body. So it impacts on the major hormones. Now, I think that kind of labeling of them as the major hormones was done by a man, because if you have estrogen and progesterone, you know they're the major hormones. But we're talking about thyroid, the adrenal glands, adrenaline, cortisol, and about insulin. So estrogen has an effect on the production of insulin, so that when you're eating now, it's having a different effect. It's putting more of a load on your body than it did when you were pre-menopause.
Yeah, wow.
So let's just get that straight out there, that this isn't just about the reproductive hormones. This is about the impact that it has on your major hormones, which is why you might find yourself feeling more anxious. You've never felt that anxious before, and suddenly you're feeling anxious. That you get kind of emotionally hijacked more than you ever have been before.
Yeah.
You start to put on weight that you hadn't put on before.
Yep.
This is all part of the impact of the reproductive hormones on the major hormones.
So what can we do about that? So, all the hormones are reducing. We're having all these symptoms, and like, even for myself trying to put together this show, there's a lot that I really want to do and create this platform for women over 40. And so there's a lot I want to do and achieve. And then it's just like, nah, my body's like, nah, not today, you're not. I'm just like, no, not this week, not this week. Next week we can crash and burn. And so look, I can still do it, but it stops you from enjoying it. And that's my focus, is to enjoy and love every single thing that I do. And so it takes that enjoyment out of it, because it's a struggle. So every day's a struggle, every day's a push. So what can we do about that? Is there anything we can do, or is it suck it up, princess?
No, it is not suck it up, definitely, and not suffer in silence. So if you're not talking about it with your friends, get over yourself and talk about it, because when we feel supported, we feel less stressed. Yeah. So if you can chat with some friends and have a laugh about it, I'm not saying form a pity party, because that doesn't work. If you're just sitting around moaning about how bad you feel, not going to do anything for you. But if you talk about, well, what are you doing about it? Have you seen this article? Have you watched that video? So you're looking for solutions. Then that is supportive. So please don't just sit around moaning, but get out there and talk to your friends. So let's talk about nutrition. I don't talk about diets because, well, women have such a relationship with dieting. And often by the time you get to midlife, a lot of women who come to see me, they've been yo-yo dieting. They've gone on, the cabbage diet, or, they've been to a slimming club, or they've done this, that, the other, and it's been successful. They lost the weight. 6 months later, it's come back and it's brought its friends with it.
And it's
That
friends
cycle doesn't just do this. It goes like, it keeps going up. It's not a permanent form of weight loss, because that comes with a changing of the mindset and a changing of the habits. And I know that that is something that you do as well.
Yeah.
So when people come to see me, sometimes I will get a client who comes to see me and says, I want you to hypnotize me so I stay on my diet. I'm going to ask a lot of questions, and I'm probably not going to work with that person, because I can't congruently do it.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe in it. If I think that they need to because of something they've said to me, I'm going to help them, but I'm going to be slipping other stuff in as well to support them. But just help me stay on this stupid diet, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. I even had a doctor call me and wanted me to help them do that. And I refused. And they were kind of a little bit shocked, but they were binge eating, and then we discovered that they were fasting for 3 or 4 days and then stuffing themselves after that. I'm like, do you know why you're doing that? Like, because you're bloody hungry.
I was talking to a doctor who said that for some years she'd existed on Coke and Mars bars, and you think, and you're advising other people. Okay. So let's get down to the sort of nitty gritty of it. You need to be eating a well-balanced diet at this stage of life. There are some things that really should be in what you're eating and some things that definitely shouldn't.
Yeah.
And it's around making those choices that give you that good spread on your plate. So in terms of what to avoid, it's about looking at what you're eating at the moment. You might even want to keep a bit of a food diary. There's no judgment about it. You're not going to slap yourself for what you're eating. It's just noticing what you're eating when you're eating it and what symptoms come up, because we're all different. So something that might trigger a hot flush for me might not trigger one for you.
Yeah.
Now, there are some common ones. So eating sugar-rich foods can often trigger a hot flush because of how your body has to respond to the sugar, because it puts a load onto the pancreas to create insulin, and you're going to go into a bit of a sugar high, and then your body's going to get into fat storage. Watch out for that. And then you go into the dip, and that's putting another stress on the body, and so you might eat something sweet again. You're going to go up and think, oh, that's that solved. You're into fat storage again, and then you're plummeting again. So getting out of those cycles is really important. You don't want to be doing this all day long. You want a more gentle undulation would be better. So those sugary foods, if you're experiencing hot flushes, they are not doing you any favors. I sometimes say things like sugar, and I'm going to mention alcohol. They're false friends. They're the sort of friends who say, hey, come on, I'll cheer you up. Come out and party. And you go out with them, and then they abandon you in the corner of the room, and you end up feeling miserable. Avoid those kind of friends.
I love that.
So the other things that can certainly trigger hot flushes, caffeine is a bit of a thing there. So if you're experiencing night sweats, you're better off not drinking coffee after lunchtime, because it can just really heat your system up. But again, it's your system. If you keep a diary, you'll be able to notice what's going on. For me, red meat makes me hot. If I have a traditional British roast beef on Sunday, I know I'm going to go to bed and I'm going to feel hot and not in a good way, So, and it's finding those things, foods that are just the temperature of them is hot. If you're at work going into a meeting, you're not going to want to drink a hot thing of soup before you go into the meeting. It's going to raise your base temperature.
That makes sense.
Or even that hot cup of tea or hot drink that you take into a meeting, let it cool down. You don't want to be raising your base temperature up. So that's just a few ideas about the things that can trigger, but if you start to, I'm going to come back to this, eating slowly and mindfully, you're going to notice the things that start to trigger symptoms, either very short term or long term.
Yeah.
And then including in your diet things that are called phytoestrogens. Phytoestrogens, they're going to fight for us.
Yeah, tell us about those.
Yeah, these are plant estrogens. So it's not like taking estrogen as part of hormone replacement therapy. These are much gentler, lower quantities of estrogen, but very supportive of your system. And there are different types of phytoestrogens. You don't have to know all the names, but things that you'll find them in, a really good friend is flaxseed or linseed.
Yep.
Very good in terms of fiber, because sometimes we can get a bit constipated at menopause, but also it has phytoestrogens in it that help to support your system. And of course, it's easy to sprinkle on your breakfast cereal or onto salads. You can get culinary linseed oil that you can make into a dressing. So that's good. You can put it in your baking or whatever. Chickpeas have phytoestrogens, so your hummus is a good thing.
Yeah.
Lentils and lots of these plants that can be really helpful. Some of the fermented phytoestrogens, like miso, tempeh, things made from soya. Now, I generally don't recommend soya milk, mainly because I worked with a nutritionist who wasn't keen on soya milk. She said it just wasn't as good as the fermented forms of soya.
Yep.
So you're really looking for the tofus, misos, tempehs, the ones that are fermented, all good to include into your diet. So yeah, thinking about how you could include some of those. It's about eating your green vegetables. Just about every nation has a diagram of a healthy food plate, and they're all different.
Yeah.
And the one in the UK generally has quite a big proportion of it that has the carbohydrates on it. You don't need that much carbohydrate, particularly not the simple carbohydrates, the white flours, the white rice, the white pasta, because again, when you're processing it in your body, it's going to create sugars and you're going to increase that sugar load on your body. So really, you're into your green vegetables. You're eating healthy omega-3 oils, so things like the fatty fish, the avocados, the nuts and seeds. All of these things are going to be giving you that balance in your nutrition that's going to support your body. It's really what anybody would say was a healthy diet.
Yeah.
It's the nutrition, and really it's the inclusion of those phytoestrogens. And before I go off it, and in case I forget, avoiding xenoestrogens. These are the bad guys. These are the X-Men.
These are the mafia, the mafia friends.
They are, yeah. So the xenoestrogens are chemical estrogens that are contained in plastics.
Oh.
So when you store food in plastic containers, if you put food in plastic containers in your freezer, I can actually smell it when I take the food out the freezer. There's just a certain smell, chemical smell. And once you get attuned to it, you think, oh, that's not very good, because it's seeping into your food. Yeah. And the very worst way it gets into your food is if you heat food up in a microwave in a plastic container.
I'm just thinking of all those pre-made meals that people are having right now. I'm glad I changed over to glass. I've got glass. I did that a while ago, glass, and but some things were coming in plastic. Yeah. I'm trying to avoid that too. Yeah.
So if you're going to heat up one of those pre-prepared meals, putting it into a bowl, taking it out of the plastic before you put it into the microwave.
Yeah.
Because you're just going to release those bad estrogens and they disrupt your hormones.
Yeah, wow.
Who tells you that? It's
No.
disrupting your hormones.
No one.
So that's really important. So staying well hydrated, I have my lemon water here.
I've got my water, I've got half a litre to go today.
So I drink water with a slice of lemon in it. all morning up till lunchtime when I have my first cup of tea of the day, because we need to stay well hydrated. Those symptoms of menopause that are around brain fog.
Okay.
Yeah. Where if you haven't experienced brain fog, when I was working at that senior level and had lots of responsibility, and I was studying for an MBA at the time as well, and looking after my home, my son getting ready to leave to go off to university, I felt like I needed a new pair of glasses. It was like the world had gone out of focus.
Yeah. I get really, some days I'm okay, like today I'm okay. Other days I can't read a thing. Everything's fuzzy, like it's like double vision on every letter.
Yeah.
Crazy. It's
So
weird.
that's why, that's why it's really important to stay well hydrated, because your brain needs that. And the omega-3, the fatty acids, the brain needs them
Yeah.
in order to function really well. So if somebody says, oh, you should be on low fat, not a good idea, because there are certain things our body absolutely relies on at this stage of life.
Yeah. I grew up low fat. I mean, that's what health professionals were telling us. You know, they use us as guinea pigs, don't they? So my whole life, everything's, you know, low fat, no fat. And so I'm a vegetarian. So it's really hard to eat enough calories, and which is really detrimental because you feel tired, and also especially now. So I add more fat into every meal, either oil or I put some butter in it or something. Otherwise, I am not eating enough calories, and my metabolism will just get slower and slower and slower. And it's funny because, you know, you're rattling off those things about the hot flushes and the sugar, the coffee, the red meat, all the things I don't have, and having more plants, which is great. Didn't know the plastic, which is fantastic. And I really don't get hot flushes. I rarely will get something like that. And, you know, maybe I've had sugar that day, but I've never been a sugar person. I'm more of a savory person. So I'm lucky in that sense. But, you know, I don't get those hot flushes or that kind of thing. But I do get those symptoms, the fatigue, and I've had the brain fog before, and that's better now. You know, you're making little adjustments as you go on. You figure out what works for you, you know. But what I can't figure out now is maybe it's my cycle that's causing the fatigue, or just that overall feeling of horribleness. That's the part that I can't work out.
So the other part of this, and you've alluded to it right near the beginning, is that we need to be managing our stress levels. Because there is something else that's going on in our adrenal glands, which is where some of our progesterone is created, and in fact where elements of estrogen are created as well. Now, if you're on levels of stress, and often we're stressing ourselves rather than anybody else stressing us, then the adrenal glands steal the building blocks for the progesterone and the estrogen and use them to create cortisol instead. So we're creating more stress hormone, which is why women can feel more anxious at this stage of life. And we're losing the hormones that we need when they're already reducing. So it's really important in terms of managing your stress levels. I was only on a conversation with some other women yesterday, and I said, you know, I've got a lot going on at the moment, and I realize it's only me that's creating the lot that's going on. So I need to be looking at it. So last night I could have been on a group call at 11 o'clock in the evening, but I knew I was getting up to do this call this morning. And I said to my husband, I've just made that decision. I'd love to be on that call, but I'm not doing it. Because otherwise I wouldn't be in a good place for today. So it is about managing your stress levels. It's not only having a to-do list, it's having a to-don't list. You know, what can you eliminate, and how can you manage your stress levels? Can you have yoga as part of your daily routine? Can you do meditation? I do Tai Chi every morning,
Yeah.
In fact, after this call, because for me this is quite early in the morning, I'll be putting my Tai Chi clothes on and getting out in the garden, just to kind of calm my system down for the day. So managing stress levels is really important. And I know it's tough because at this stage of life, women have a lot going on.
Yeah.
And it's finding you have to prioritize yourself. You
Yeah.
have to prioritize your well-being. It can't be an add-on, because you're not doing yourself any favors and you're not doing everybody else any favors either. You know, it's that whole you can't pour from an empty jug. You've
Yeah.
got to be filling that jug up by taking care of yourself. So
Yeah.
that would be my advice to you, is look at your to-do list.
Yeah.
You can get it done, but pace yourself. Make sure you're taking that time for self-care.
Yeah. And I can pinpoint probably what's caused their feeling this week. And when you said that, I'm like, ah, yes. Because I know this about stress because I had this stressful incident earlier and I know I'm very sensitive to it. So I try my hardest not to be stressed. But sometimes it's so sneaky, right? It's the sneaky friend, because you don't realize that you're stressed out until you start to feel really bad and you're like, oh, hang on, I'm feeling really stressed, but you don't realize that you've been stressed for a couple of days. And yeah, so it was a sneaky friend and it snuck in. So I think that's probably what's caused it, me feeling off this week. And that's how sensitive I've become to it. It's not like I'm only stressed in that time and once I stop I'm okay. It doesn't work like that. And then you can still feel it in your body. And now I think about it, that was the feeling I was feeling. I wasn't feeling grounded. I wasn't feeling I just have this peaceful flow about my day usually, and I feel like that was lost this week. And I really like to focus and be mindful about what I'm doing and enjoy everything that I'm doing. And I really felt disconnected. So that makes a lot of sense. So thank you for that.
I'll send you my pill.
I was going to ask you to give us an example of a client, but I mean, there's an example right there. I mean, unless you've got like an example that you want to share, because I find people can relate when they hear somebody else's story. If you've got somebody in mind that you're thinking of that have come to you with, suffering all sorts of symptoms or struggling at work even. And this is why I wanted to talk to you, because, we do have a lot of audience that is still working and suffering with this. So can you give us an example or tell us about somebody that, was struggling at work, or whatever example you want to give, what it is that they implemented and what their results were after that?
Yeah, so somebody came to me who I already knew through networking, who was working in her own business, and she was already on hormone replacement therapy. And sometimes that is kind of sold as the answer, the silver bullet, and it isn't always the silver bullet. She was still getting symptoms. She wasn't sleeping well. She was feeling anxious. And we talked through it, and I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not an exercise specialist, but I know the principles. So I can ask the right questions and find where the patterns are. And, I don't really sleep well at the weekends. And then Monday, I feel like rubbish. Tuesday, and I'm not working with my clients well. And so, well, let's look at what's happening at the weekend. And the weekend was when there were a few glasses of wine, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night.
Yeah.
And, the false friend comes through the door, because alcohol stresses your system out. It can feel like a treat, but think about what a treat is. Is it something that makes you feel good, or, makes you feel bad the rest of the week? So we started to focus on food and on, she was like, oh, I still want to have my alcohol. I said, you have your alcohol, but notice what happens with it, because your food and your drink are your building blocks. And if you start to notice that it's the alcohol is the main thing that's stopping you from sleeping at night, do you want to pay that price? So there was a real re-education to do around what a treat was, and whether alcohol was really a treat, and what else was happening at the weekends in terms of diet. Are you eating more sweet stuff at the weekend? Are you having a dessert where you wouldn't during the week? Finding that pattern, finding what's different at the times that you're experiencing the symptoms. Now, it took quite a while for her to accept that alcohol was the false friend.
We
But,
don't know, do we?
sometimes you get wedded to it and think, oh, I can't do without it. Well, of course you can do without it. You know, it's not a must. And once you start to understand what it's doing to your body and how it's disrupting 7 days of the week for perhaps 2 days of feeling a little bit relaxed, because alcohol, you might think it relaxes you to sleep. It doesn't. It's stressing your system out. And you might get off to sleep because of all the disinhibitors in the brain. You might get off to sleep, but you're not having a good sleep pattern.
Yeah.
It actually stops you from having a healthy sleep pattern. So you wake up in the morning feeling tired. It dehydrates you. At the same time, depending on what you're drinking, you probably had to get up for a wee several times during the night. And it's really like shining a light on what happens so that somebody can make an informed decision rather than their subconscious just going, oh yeah, we always have a drink at the weekend, let's have a drink. Like consciously going, if I have a drink, what will happen? I might feel a bit jollier over the weekend, but then I'm going to feel rubbish and I'm not going to be able to do my job for the rest of the week.
Yeah.
And when she finally accepted not drinking alcohol anymore, she just felt so much better.
Yeah.
And was able, because alcohol is a disinhibitor, you might eat things after you've had a drink that you wouldn't eat any other time.
Yeah.
Particularly if you're going out to eat, you might order stuff and you eat more than you need because you've disinhibited the system that goes, do you know, you've had enough, you can stop now. No, it just goes, you might as well have it.
Having a good time.
And the other point about this, the other point about this is eating slowly and mindfully. That is one of the biggest breakthroughs with clients. Often clients who have weight problems say to me, when I ask them, how do you eat normally? Oh, I really eat quickly. I haven't got a lot of time. And of course, for women, time is at a premium. But if you eat quickly, those signals that come from the brain that say you can stop now, you're not physically hungry anymore, you don't hear them. You're busy shoveling it in. If you eat slowly, you hear the signal and you can decide to stop. You can either, if there's something left on the plate, you can put it back in the fridge, not in a plastic container.
Not in that plastic.
Or even throw it away.
Yeah, heaven forbid. I think we're, I don't know, around my era, it's like you were always told that there were starving children. And I remember my sister used to pipe up one day, she said, well, I'll send it to them.
I think we've all had that moment. I'll pay the postage. Nobody in Africa ever felt better because you ate too much food.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I think, I think that's probably a generational poverty or, a lack of food thing, because their parents would have gone through the Great Depression and then food scarcity for them growing up. Yeah, we know that story. Okay, amazing. Like, I'm just getting so much out of this, and it's really helping me, realize a few things and connect those dots with the stress and how I felt for the rest of the week. So I was kind of like thinking, oh, it's just my cycle because I'm in my cycle this week. Can it affect the heaviness of your cycle? I think I'm not getting cramps, but I think it's just the heaviness, and I feel like it's draining. It's really, really draining. So, I think when you're still getting your cycle and you feel like, oh, it's that, and there's not much you can do about it. But there was something that I guess kicked in before that is making this cycle difficult, because it's not always. So yeah, I think I answered my own question there.
But also watch out, I think some women think, well, a lot of women know nothing about what's going to happen to them at menopause. They weren't like me. They didn't start going and finding out about it. So it all comes as a bit of a shock. you might expect that your periods will get lighter and less frequent as you get towards menopause.
That's what I thought.
Maybe they will, maybe. They might get heavier, they might get more frequent. There's every combination because these hormones aren't going into like a smooth decline. You might see that on graphs that it looks like it's a gentle slope.
Oh
It's
yeah.
not. They're going up and down
Well,
like
they're having
this
a party.
as they cycle through it. So it's really about understanding that your menopause is your menopause. If you're having frequent and heavy periods, need to check out that you're not becoming anemic, because it can cause you to be anemic, and you might need food supplements to
Yeah.
help your blood iron.
Yeah, look, I already am anemic. I get iron injections.
Yeah.
So luckily that I already do that. But it still has an effect on me because, you know, you've got a loss. You've got a deep loss in that time. So it's tiring and draining. And so I think we just need to also honor ourselves when we are like this and be okay. Like I had to cancel a live last week and I'm like, well, sometimes I have to do that. And it's and I think this is the thing for people that are working or even working for yourself, you know, being consistent with your audience or your customers and being consistent in your job is something that is needed. And so when you're not feeling that well, it's really navigating, well, you know, how do I navigate around that? I'm, you know, I'm having a really terrible week, but I've still got to show up, you know, so what do you do? What do you do in those situations?
Yeah, it is honoring it. It is being kind and compassionate to yourself. If you work for yourself, let me just give a little bit of good news. The other side of menopause, you can feel really energized and free and ready to go. I'm like on that other side and just beckoning women over to it. It can be this thing. And you care so much less what other people say and what they think about you. It's brilliant. You know, things that you really used to worry you when you were young, suddenly it's like, I don't care. What are you going to do to me? So that is the good news. That is just waiting, just within reach of you.
Bring it on. Bring it on.
It is honoring your body at this stage of life, though, and honoring where you are, because the more you keep pushing, the more stress you're putting on your system, the harder it gets. This is why I talk about menopause in the workplace, because if you're not working for yourself, you've got to keep turning up in the office, whatever you're doing. You might be working on a checkout in a supermarket. You might be, I was listening to a story about an airline pilot, a woman airline pilot, who suddenly felt like she couldn't see properly just because she was getting brain fog.
Oh, wow.
So we have to accept that this can happen at midlife, and why it's so important that we educate employers about it.
Yeah.
Say, if you want to get the best from your women employees, and women over 50 are the biggest, fastest growing demographic in the workplace. In Australia, in the UK, in America, those women who stayed at work because of changes in the laws around pregnancy, they've had long careers, and now they're heading to this stage and going, well, what's going on now? What's all this about? So this is a fast growing demographic, and it's why employers have to be educated about it in order to be flexible. For some women, working flexi time so they can just come in a bit later in the morning. They don't mind staying a bit later at night. Or some women want to come in earlier, avoid the rush hour, and go home earlier, avoiding the rush hour in the evening. The employer gets the same number of hours, but gets a person who's in a much better state, much more energy, feels much more loyal to the company because they're being cared for. Sometimes it's just creating that atmosphere where women feel that they can talk about things.
Yeah.
If you feel like you're pushing it down and you can't talk about it, it's more stress. If you feel like, I've done some work with a fire service up in the northwest of England, and their chief fire officer is brilliant. He's a big guy, and I went along to do a workshop for them, and he was wearing a t-shirt that says, ask me about menopause. And I
Oh,
thought
wow,
that's
I love that.
brilliant, because he's saying to all his firefighters, all those guys and the women firefighters, this is something we talk about. You know,
Yeah.
we're not being secret about this. It's a thing.
Yeah,
And that just
there's
affects the
been this
culture.
stigma, hasn't there? There has been this stigma before, but not now. It's changing, and you know, like what we're doing here with this show as well, making sure that there's more content for people that are midlife and beyond. Because
Yes.
a lot of years left in us, and we're wise, and we've done our time. We've done the crime. We've done the time. And I think that, like, well, there's a statistic that 51% of people that hold the wealth, and I think it was in America, are female. And in 10 years' time, women will hold the majority of the wealth around the world. So, and I just really feel like women do business and women do wealth and, you know, entrepreneurship differently. And I can see a major shift coming. And I think the more that we all come together and work together, I think we've been encouraged to be separate. And I think once women really click into gear, look out, world. Especially us, you know, midlife people, with all the knowledge that we have and the way that we like to be in part of a community, and talk and talk through things and support each other, and like we like to leave the world a better place than what we, you know, where we started. And we want to pass on that message to our daughters and our sisters and our mothers. So I think the more we share, and, you know, share this session too, the more we share and the more we think about these things and talk about these things and have these events, the better, and the faster that's all going to happen, and the better for all us women.
Really. Absolutely. And it's better for the guys. You know, menopause doesn't just affect women.
Yeah.
If you're a partner of a woman and she's not sleeping well at night, you're probably not sleeping well at night. If you're worried that she's not well, if you're going to work worrying about your partner, it's going to affect your performance. And in fact, one of the firefighters at this workshop stood up and told the story of the 3 years of his wife receiving the wrong treatment and how it impacted on him, because she wasn't sleeping well. She was in low mood and depression. He was trying to get her appointments with medical people, and he knew that she wasn't getting what she needed. So it doesn't just affect us, it affects everybody. And the children.
Around us. Yeah, and everyone around us, especially when we're not in the best moods.
Yes.
It's like, avoid Will Robinson, avoid danger. Yeah. All right, so if you've got, say somebody has been suffering for a long time, or they want to really make a massive change in their life, around this, you know, they're suffering the symptoms, or they're suffering from perimenopause, or they just really want to make, you know, create this life of rich experiences, but they don't know where to start. What would be your go-to, let's say your top tip, right? Your top tip if you're going to look at your menopause and how to become more well?
Where do I start? So the first thing I'd say is prioritize your self-care.
Yeah.
If you're not looking after yourself, nobody else is going to do it. So it's really important to prioritize your self-care and to prioritize looking at what you're eating and drinking. So start there. With all the things that we've said, look at what you're eating, look at what you're drinking, look at the pattern of your symptoms. And if you're feeling a lot of fatigue, if you're putting on weight around your middle, there's something that needs to change in what you're eating and drinking. So keeping a journal, as I say, it's not judgmental. You're not slapping yourself with it. It's just, oh, I hadn't realized that. There can be some really big aha moments. So eating when you're physically hungry, if you're emotionally hungry, dealing with the emotions.
Yeah.
That's
That's really
probably
good
about 10
advice.
tips.
They're really good advice, and I hope you are writing those in your journals. If not, rewind, write it down, because everyone should have a journal. So thank you so much for coming and speaking with us today. Now, I know that you've got some information or like a special gift that you want to give the audience as well that will help them.
Yeah, so actually it's a whole bundle of gifts. I have a website for my first book, Hot Women Cool Solutions. So it's hotwomencoolsolutions.com. If you go to that, on the right-hand side, you can see a whole list of things, bonus gifts for the book that you can just pick up by putting in your email. I'm not a spammer. Don't worry, you're not going to be hearing from me every day. There are some hypnotic recordings in it. There are some journal materials. Go grab it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. That's very generous. And we'll put a link to all of to that on the speakers page. Now, if you're watching this, we are on YouTube and Facebook. Make sure you're registered for the event so then you can click on and get that, and also rewind and replay. So thanks again for coming and speaking with us and giving us your time. I certainly got a lot out of that, some light bulb moments for me, and I feel a little bit greedy, like, I got all my answers. Look, I hope others can relate by hearing my story as well. And thank you for going through that with me and having I loved how it was just very conversational. And I guess that's how it needs to go when we want to talk about menopause, and how easy it is to have that conversation. So I hope this sparks people having conversations about menopause, their symptoms, and I think it really helps. It really helps understanding that other people are going through the same thing, and there are solutions, right? So thanks again for sharing that with us and imparting your wonderful knowledge.
You're welcome. And so when you talk about it with your friends, talk about the positive things that you're going to be doing and sharing your wisdom with everybody. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
No worries. Thank you so much. Bye for now.
Bye.